Hi and welcome back to Pick Up the Pieces. My name is Stacy and we're in the pickup kitchen tonight making another pasta dish. So this pasta dish came from the Hunger Diaries TV YouTube channel. The girl that runs that page, her name is Lindsay, and she makes really good high protein recipes, and a lot of her recipes are like kind of decadent, wonderful things that she's made a little bit healthier, and this is something that we love. I've modified the recipe a tiny bit, but it is her recipe, and so certainly in the description I will give her credit for that. And I'm going to actually add something to the top of it tonight that'll make it a little different for us. So we're going to try something new. So my garden has been joyfully providing us with cherry tomatoes. So I wanted to use some of the cherry tomatoes. What I had done was I picked a bunch of them and I froze them in a Ziploc bag. And so what I'm now going to do tonight is I'm going to try like a roasted tomato kind of topping for this pasta. So I've preheated my oven to 425. I want these to roast at a really high heat. I've got 6 or 7 cloves of garlic. I've got a bunch of tomatoes in my glass baking dish, and I'm going to put a generous amount of olive oil on here. And then when my oven comes to temperature, I'm going to put these in to cook while the pasta is cooking. The nice thing about this recipe is it's a one-pot pasta, so once you get it going in your pan, you're going to start and finish that recipe in the same pan, which is great. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to these tomatoes. And then as soon as my oven comes to temperature, I will get these in the oven. And so now we're going to get some garlic chopped and sauteing, and then we're going to make the sauce for this pasta. So this pasta is very garlic heavy. It is delicious. I took, I think it's 10 cloves of garlic out of the freezer, and they are defrosted and ready to go. And so all I'm doing here is just cutting them sort of into smaller widths, and then I'm going to put them through my favorite garlic chopper, and then we'll get these sauteing in a pan. So while I'm chopping up this garlic, I'll get my pan heating up. Like I said, this is a one-pot pasta, which is great because you're not having to boil your pasta, drain it, add it to another pan, so it saves a little time with cleanup. So we're just going to get this going. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, maybe like a tablespoon. And then I'm adding a tablespoon of butter to the pan as well. So while that heats up, then I'll chop up this garlic so that it's ready to go. And I think you guys have probably seen me use my favorite little garlic chopper before, but it is awesome. Saves a ton of time. It's not hard to clean up, and then you don't have to chop garlic by hand. Just kind of banging that on the counter a little so that I can get the garlic to settle and finish chopping. And if any of the garlic kind of tries to escape the chopper, I just push it back onto the blades and give it another press, and then you're all set. So now we have our full container here of garlic, and I can hear that my butter and oil are starting to sizzle, so I'm going to add this garlic in. And there is a little bit of garlic stuck on the underside of the chopper, so I'm just going to get that out with my knife. Okay, so I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. I don't want my garlic to burn. You want a little bit of color on your garlic, that's fine, but burnt garlic will be very bitter in anything that you cook. So you really don't want your garlic to ever burn. You want to keep a close eye on it. And my pan is a little bit too hot for my liking, so I'm going to even take it off the burner just for a second or two so that, again, I don't get too much color on the garlic and it doesn't burn for me while I make the sauce. So this is my Vitamix blender, and sometimes I'm not making a huge batch of something, I'm just making a small batch. And I don't always want to get the big blender cup out and end up making a mess of it. And especially if you just have a small amount of something you want to mix up, you don't really want to mess up a huge blender for a couple of cups of something. So this recipe calls for 1 cup of cottage cheese. I went with the 2% fat cottage cheese. You could use non-fat, you could use the 1%, the 4%, whatever you can get at your store and whatever you like. If you use the higher fat cottage cheese, obviously your dish will be a little bit richer, but either is fine. And so then 1 cup of milk goes in here. And then I'm going to blend this up so that the cottage cheese is smooth. If you did not blend this up, your pasta dish would definitely be kind of chunky, and that is not what you want. When using these kind of cup blenders, I also find it's helpful to give them a shake to mix the ingredients a little bit before you blend it. And so now I'm just putting it on my Vitamix blender, and I'm going to get this spun together. Okay, and so that comes together really easily and really quickly. It's just 1 cup of milk and 1 cup of cottage cheese, and it will be really creamy and nice and should look something like this. Now, our garlic is all set. It's sauteed really quickly and it's light brown, which is great. It didn't burn. And so now I am going to add this to my garlic. And I'm going to use my spatula to make sure I get every bit of the sauce out of here. And then I'm going to add 32 ounces of chicken broth. And that should be this whole jar of chicken broth. I made this homemade with some leftover rotisserie chicken bones and meat and skin. And so this is home canned, homemade chicken stock or chicken broth. And there is a video on the channel for you to watch on how I did that, but it's super easy and it's a good use of ingredients, so you're not wasting anything or throwing out things that you could be putting to good use. So 32 ounces is a quart, and this is a quart jar, and so I'm just going to dump this whole jar of homemade, home canned chicken broth in here. And then I'm going to bring this to a boil. You want that to come to a boil so that when you put your pasta in, then it starts to cook. And you also can add something called nutritional yeast. These are nutritional yeast flakes. It's called nooch. It's a very commonly used ingredient in the vegan world. And it smells like cheese almost. And it's got lots of protein and vitamins in it. So it's a very good, healthy ingredient. And if you put this in now into your sauce, it will dissolve nicely. You can also use it as a topping on top of your pasta or vegetables or anything really that you'd like to top with it. If you want a little bit of like a cheesy flavor with less fat, but actually good vitamins and good protein. So I put about a 1/4 cup of the nutritional yeast flakes in the pasta. And it is a good ingredient to use if you cannot eat cheese. if cheese bothers you. I have found that sometimes too much dairy will cause me a problem. Sometimes it'll upset my stomach or maybe cause my skin to break out a little bit. But cottage cheese, which is cultured cheese, does not do that. And so when I'm trying to limit the amount of dairy that I'm taking in, this nutritional yeast is a good condiment to use, or seasoning, I guess you would call it. And cottage cheese or yogurt don't tend to bother me. You could also use like an unflavored, unsweetened, like nut milk, like almond milk, or maybe like soy milk or something like that if you didn't want to do dairy milk in this recipe. So we're just going to give this a stir. And when this starts to come to a boil, we're going to add our pasta to it. And I will show you how it cooks. All right, so our sauce has come to a bubble and we're going to add pasta. I've got a helper tonight. Just slide it in, careful. Good. Do it again, grab another handful. So we have 1 pound of linguine. And we're just going to put that in the pot. And you can put it in different directions. Like, that's all right. That's good. So that way it's easier to like kind of move around, make sure it doesn't stick. Okay, can you grab bigger handfuls, please?
Sure.
So we're just going to get all of our pasta in here, and then we're going to stir it around and make sure that it doesn't stick. Just put them all in. Thank you so much. And so you can do this with a wooden spoon. You can do this with a spatula. I think tongs are the easiest. And you're really just going to kind of move your pasta around a little bit so that it does not all clump together and it ends up fully submerged in the sauce. Now, the pasta is going to cook in the sauce, and believe it or not, it will absorb all of the sauce, and so it's kind of fun to watch. And it'll probably take 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, however long it takes for you to cook your pasta. I've never really timed this. I usually just kind of move the pasta around and watch it as it cooks. And then I'll test a noodle at some point and just make sure that it's done. And around the time that the sauce thickens up and becomes really creamy is usually around the time that the pasta is completely cooked. Do you want to put some salt and pepper in for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on 1 second. All right, go ahead. So my helper is going to put some salt and pepper in. Other direction. Turn it the wrong way. There we go. Perfect. Okay, I think that's a good amount. Move that, and now grab a couple pinches of salt. Do one and sprinkle it over, and then do another one. A little bit more. Bigger pinch, please. A little bit more. Double what you just put in. Very nice. Perfect. Thank you so much. It is nice to have a kitchen helper when you need one. Now, if you want to with this recipe, you could certainly add some Romano cheese or Parmesan cheese. That is optional. You can add it at this point while it's cooking. You can add it at the end, or you can just sprinkle a little over the top of your pasta. To be honest, I think the flavor of this pasta is so good that you really don't need to add any actual cheese to it, but that's up to you. And again, if you'd like to add a little at any point of the cooking process, it is completely fine. So we are just going to let this simmer away, and we're going to give it a little toss and a stir with the tongs all along the way. I wouldn't say you have to do it continually, but you have to do it every little bit to make sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom of the pan and that the pasta isn't sticking to itself. But the recipe itself is considered like a high protein pasta because according to the calculations done by Lindsay, who created this recipe, there's about 40 grams. I think it was 40 grams of protein in the pasta recipe total. You can use also a protein pasta if you want to up the protein content. So if you buy like the Barilla or other brand protein pastas, you can use that, and that will give you more protein as well. I've done it both ways. We like it both ways. This is just a regular linguine, and it comes out great. But like I said, you can do this with protein pastas, and you can also do this with like penne or other shapes of pasta. It would probably be good with shells, but whatever you prefer you can do, and it will come out just great. So I will show you what this looks like after it has simmered for a little bit. So our pasta is continuing to cook. It is not completely done yet, but I just wanted to show you like all of the noodles have softened and the cooking liquid is sort of absorbing or thickening. And so we will continue to let that cook. So our protein pasta is almost done. As you can see, a lot of the liquid has absorbed into the pasta. There's still a little bit left. And I've just got this on a really low heat, and I'm letting it continue to cook and absorb. I would estimate maybe another 2 minutes or so, and this should be done. And I will check on the tomatoes. Those have been in the oven roasting away while the pasta has been cooking, and we've also heated up some homemade garlic knots that we made. And that is going to complete our meal tonight. You can certainly serve this with a little bit of salad if you'd like to, or a veggie. You could also fold vegetables into the pasta if you'd like to, maybe a little broccoli or something like that. But tonight we are keeping it simple and just going with the pasta with some roasted tomato over the top and some garlic knots. And so this is actually kind of like a vegetarian meal tonight. So I will show you what this looks like when it is ready to eat. Our pasta is perfectly cooked, and I added a little bit more salt and pepper on the top. I'm just going to mix this through, and what I'm going to do is turn the heat off completely and just cover this and keep it warm. All this nice sauce will continue to absorb into the pasta. My pasta is al dente, so it's not going to overcook if I put the lid on. Do you know what al dente means?
It's medium.
Medium? No, it means to the tooth in Italian, which means the pasta still has a little bit of chew to it. So I'm just going to put the cover on it to keep it warm and allow the sauce to continue to mingle with the pasta. And when the tomatoes are ready, I'll show you how we plate this up. So our pasta has been sitting in the pot for a couple of minutes with the heat off, and this is exactly what you want. So there's not a lot of excess liquid in the bottom of the pot, but the sauce is completely coating the pasta and it's nice and thick, and the pasta is cooked. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this in a dish. My helper is probably not going to want tomatoes on top of her pasta, so this is going to be her bowl of pasta, and we can add a little bit of fresh parsley to it. You want to come do that? Come here, bring that over. There you go, put a little on. There you go. And so this is some fresh pasta ready to go minus the tomato topping. Last night was pizza night at our house, and I had a little bit of extra pizza dough left over. So what I did was sort of make my own homemade garlic knots, I guess you'd call them. When I made these last night and we baked them up, we had all eaten our pizza, we were full, and when we tasted these, we thought they tasted good, but really we weren't in the mood to continue to eat something else, and so we put them in a bag and saved them to go with tonight's dinner. And then what we did was put them on a tray, brush them with a little bit of garlic butter. We just took a little bit of butter and melted it, added some garlic powder, a little parsley, and spread it over the top, and then put it in the oven to warm up. And these actually came out surprisingly good. They don't look great. They're not very impressive looking. Store-bought garlic knots are definitely a little more beautiful than these, but they came out really, really good. But next time I make them, I think that I would shape the knots and proof them a little bit longer. I think these proofed on the counter for maybe 15 or 20 minutes before we baked them. But I think if you proof them a little bit longer, then they might, puff a little bit more. And then when they bake, maybe they're a little bit bigger. But the texture of these is great. They're like a chewy, delicious bread, and the garlic butter on the top is perfect. So we're going to have these tonight with our protein pasta. Our tomatoes are done, and so I put these tomatoes with a little bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, and these whole garlic cloves in the oven, and I roasted them at 425. I would say they roasted for probably about 20-25 minutes. And all I am going to do is just top my pasta with some of this, and I think it's going to be absolutely delicious. I think you could also top this if you wanted to with a little bit of fresh parsley. That would be amazing. Maybe another little drizzle of olive oil. I'm going to throw a little bit of parsley on there because why not? Fresh basil would be delicious as well. I hope that you enjoyed watching us make this amazing protein pasta recipe and that you try it soon. I would like to thank you for continuing to watch my videos and being part of our YouTube family. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much and have a great night.